Hello and welcome to the Inside Elland Road podcast with me, Joe Donoghue, and YEP chief football writer Graham Smith. Monday night was some night, wasn't it? Elland Road at its very, very best. Some would say the best it's been in recent memory. That really felt like two promotions worth of celebrations after fans missed out on 2020's achievement. So many different storylines to follow and threads to pull at. Ramazani's double, the professionalism of Leeds' performance, Harry Gray climbing the crossbar, the scarves, everything culminating in a quite perfect evening from a Leeds perspective. It's why you do it as a fan, isn't it? For nights like those. And Graham, plenty of love for Daniel Farke, which I think is pretty apt considering Leeds have already amassed a club record points tally, club record goals tally, and could yet finish this season on 100 points.
Yeah, remarkable. What an achievement. And something well worth celebrating. And I think Elland Road, we've said it before on the podcast, Elland Road has an emotional intelligence, and it knows when it's the right time to do certain things, and it knows what the right response to certain things is. And it was very, very obvious. It was tangible, the desire that the stadium had to let Farke know that they appreciated him and his effort this season on what he's achieved, particularly with the backdrop of everything that's been going on over the past week, since about 48 hours after promotion. And yeah, so they celebrated him, sang his name, and he clearly appreciated it. You know, he did kind of, I don't want to say that he begged for it, but he certainly laid the groundwork by pointing out that Harry Gray had got a chant on the night that promotion was first secured, and that he hadn't got one. So he was definitely due one, and it was a nice moment.
Yeah, a really nice evening. There's a great picture of Farke sort of pondering the achievement, or at least that's what I've speculated it to be, sort of looking off into the middle distance, whilst the rest of the squad are sort of enjoying themselves on the pitch. Willie Nyonto chasing Ethan Ampadu with, I don't even know what.
It was a glitter cannon.
That's what it was, a glitter cannon. That's a good name for an episode, actually. I mean, you had Joshua Giavogi drenching and dousing Farke with champagne. Don't think he was too pleased about it, but in the nature of celebrating promotion, I think you kind of just have to accept that sometimes these things are going to happen. You know, if you are as successful as Leeds have been this year, then you have to be braced to be in a bit of the Elland Road splash zone.
Absolutely. And on this occasion, there was no mild-mannered journalists to hide behind, although he did try to physically corral Isaac Schmidt, and but it was too late. Joshua Giavogi had his way with the champagne. He wasn't the only one, I think. I think Bogle might have got Farke as well. And yeah, and this is what people will tune into the Inside Elland Road podcast for, this knowledge. When he came in to the press room, he still smelled entirely of his favourite cologne, and there wasn't a hint of champagne in the air. Although he wasn't too pleased, I think, that he was not in his best state or best condition, because he had been drenched, but then he'd obviously drenched himself in Creed or whatever it is before he came in to see us.
Of course, you'd know what that smells like because you also smell like that. Ever since, I think it's July 2023 when you started wearing Creed.
No, that's incorrect. That's you cannot. That's a falsehood. That's a malicious falsehood as well. I do not have the financial means to keep myself in such an aftershave, so we're going to quash that one straight away. See how easy it is to quash something like a rumor. How quickly I did that just by talking. It's amazing, really, how easily it's done.
It's almost like you're teeing up a nice little segue there to discussing how, in the immediate aftermath of promotion, I mean, in the 48 hours afterwards, there were two national newspaper reports that outlined that Farke's position was maybe under review from the 49ers hierarchy, that maybe there were certain members of that group, that investment group who are on the board at Leeds, who maybe weren't entirely sold on the manager's Premier League suitability, which is completely fine. I just think the timing of it is maybe a little bit odd if those reports are to be trusted. There was, of course, a third report this week in a national newspaper, which then went as far to disclose or purportedly disclose terms of Farke's compensation if he is to be sacked, as well as suggesting three different candidates to replace him. It's I struggle to look at it beyond the case of, there's no smoke without fire. Um, what what do you make of the Farke discussion that has revolved around Leeds' last 8, 9, 10 days? Because it's kind of come out of the blue a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit crass. The timing, at least, is a bit crass. Look, of course, Leeds United were going to take stock and review everything at the end of the season. Every club does. And I would imagine that every board, or almost every board, will start with, are we sticking with the manager? And for some clubs, it's just a laugh and a yes, of course we are, particularly when we're promoted. So I would have expected Leeds to review everything, but you wouldn't have expected such noise to come out when it did. Less than 48 hours after he's on the steps of the East Stand celebrating a historic promotion back to the Premier League. I felt a bit off about the whole press conference last week, that we were going to have to ask him about his future and ask him questions about whether or not he wanted the 49ers to come out and quash all of this. Because what we should be talking about is the achievement, is the people who've made the achievement, and any little moments that he'd like to bring up from this season that he felt were pivotal or whatever. But yeah, to have to ask him about his future when he's just, he just earned 94 points after earning 90 points the season before and just missing out on promotion. Yeah, I don't think we'd be having this discussion if Leeds had gone up at the first attempt, to be quite honest. But here we are, we're having this discussion, and yeah, two separate reports from two different journalists of a pretty long-standing reputation in English football journalism, and they didn't just suddenly happen upon these ideas by themselves. Now, the Daily Mail report, it said that they were considering replacing him, but they might not. So, regardless of what happens, that report can't really be called a lie, can it? Because it's sitting on the fence pretty much. The Guardian report that came out this week instead, that it talked about compensation, a bit more meat on the bones there, which suggests that someone somewhere is talking. And the easiest thing, I suppose, to say about this is that if Leeds were not considering Daniel Farke's future, or if there was not a decision to be made, then they would have said so by now. They could have quite easily said so by now. Parag Marathi could have had an interview with any number of journalists, national or local. That he could have done a video with LUTV. He was on the pitch after the game on Monday night, and the plan, we believe, was for Sky to speak to him, and then that was no longer the plan. And if he'd wanted to, he could have taken the opportunity to just put all of this behind them and stop the noise instantly. But here we are, 3 days on from Monday night, and still no word on that. So let's wait and see. But yeah, only Leeds United, I think, could celebrate such an amazing achievement and then walk face first into this situation. I'm not saying that they shouldn't review everything. I'm not saying even that I couldn't see arguments against keeping Daniel Farke. There will be arguments for that. But I think the time for us to be discussing all of that should not have been now. Shouldn't have been this week.
Say they do want to sack him, or say they do want to go in a different direction. I feel like sacking him after potentially gaining 100 points is just not the right term. But, say they do want to go in a different direction. Can they do that after Monday night? Because the strength of feeling was intense. It was, the reflection of appreciation from the fans towards Farke was visceral. Everybody at Ellen Road will have been able to feel that, including those who were in the director's box. Jed York was there, Parag Marathi was there. There were various other, 49ers dignitaries, people within the 49ers global football group, who have a say in these matters. I personally can't see how they can take a look at that and think, okay, if we were going to go down this road, we are still, we're still going to do this, because I feel like the fans voted with their voice boxes, didn't they?
Yes and no. I think Leeds fans would have. I think there was an extra little bit of feeling from Leeds fans towards Farke because of the backdrop, because of the
Yeah.
noises. So I think they were making a point that regardless of all of this, we really appreciate the job you've done and you've led us back to the Premier League. I also think if you canvassed all 33,000 people who were singing his name, I don't think you get 33,000 people saying, yes, we should absolutely keep him as manager. I think what it comes down to for me is, has something changed? And if so, what is that thing? Because Leeds United, the hierarchy, when they appointed him, they knew that one of the first questions that would be asked, because no one was going to say, well, why have you appointed him to get you out of the Championship? That much is clear because of what he did at Norwich. He's a specialist when it comes to getting out of this division. The question that was going to come was, what happens when we're in the Premier League? And what happened with him and Norwich in the Premier League? And will that happen here? And their response was a very clear one. He didn't have a fair crack of the whip in the Premier League with Norwich. He wasn't resourced. They didn't give him a Premier League squad. We would be able to do all of that. And that was the intention when they hired him. The intention was to back him if he got them out of the Championship so that he could go and do the job in the Premier League. So, like I was saying earlier, I don't feel like a year ago this would have come up. I really don't. If they'd gone up automatically or even through the playoffs, I genuinely don't think this amount of noise would have been created about Daniel Farke and his future at Elland Road. So something has to have changed if they are going to go in a different direction. And it'd be interesting to know what that is. Is it around transfers and the level of control he likes to have? Is it about last summer and the tension that there was that Angus Kinnear admitted to, the tension that he said was healthy? Is it something that's happened during the season, something in the way the team plays or in results they've had, or a theme that's developed around the team in certain situations? What is it that could possibly have changed so much that you think, actually, now, thanks very much for getting us up, but we're now going to go in a different direction? And of course, if that is to be the case, it's a risk. You know, the risks are.
Yeah,
I was just
risks.
going to say the risks are huge because
Yeah,
if you make a change and it goes wrong, you do not look clever at all, and the fans then don't blame the new manager; they blame the people who got rid of the old manager.
yeah. I mean, in the interest of balance, looking at what Bournemouth did recently with the appointment of Andoni Iraola from Athletic Club in Spain, they replaced Gary O'Neill at the time, didn't they? And then I think it was 10 games into Iraola's stint at the Vitality Stadium that they hadn't won a game, and it looked as though they'd made a bit of an error because Gary O'Neill was quite highly regarded as a coach. Certainly, was a very good talker. I mean, we've seen him on Monday Night Football on Sky. He's very, very amiable, very open with his ideas and things like that. And I think there was a reflection amongst neutrals in English football that O'Neill was maybe treated a little bit unfairly because he'd kept Bournemouth in the Premier League, a club whose stature is nowhere near the size of a Leeds, for example, or the teams that they're competing with, and yet the management and the hierarchy had decided to go a different way. I think you'd probably be hard pushed to find somebody right now, what is it, 18, 20 months down the line, who'd say that Bournemouth were not justified in making that decision because of the results that they've got. They're a very comfortable, established Premier League team. They looked for a decent portion of the season as though they might trouble the European places. I mean, they've dropped off lately, but then again, lots of teams have that issue. I think as well, when O'Neill was at Wolves, yes, it didn't go to plan. But what the hierarchy at Wolves have done is they brought in someone who has got a tune out of the admittedly quite blessed squad that they have there in Premier League terms. Certainly a mid-table squad, not one that should be struggling around the bottom. So, I mean, these are why these high-powered executives are in these positions. It's to make the difficult calls without emotion, without sentiment, without but solely with the best interest of the clubs that they're appointed to look after in mind. With that in mind, is is it such a surprise then that there has been this speculation around Farke's future?
Maybe not. No, like I said earlier, you expect clubs to review everything. You just don't expect that the noise to leak out quite as heavily as it has done over the past week. Is it a surprise? Well, I would say, had this been the case after Marcelo Bielsa masterminded promotion, there would have been riots instead of cheering fans outside the East Stand. You know, it would have got ugly, I think, very, very quickly. Because I think people were so wedded to him as a person, his philosophy, the way he turned the club around. 16 years of exile from the Premier League, the style of play, the way he transformed the players, all of that, everything that made people fall in love with Bielsa, I think there would have been a really strong reaction against the idea of Bielsa being sacked after promotion. This time, it's funny. There is a strong reaction from sections of the fan base. There are people who think that this is below Leeds United and this is crass, and that he should be given the opportunity and he should be backed. And there are those who think, actually, yeah, I could see it. There are those that would not. I think they would shrug rather than, throw hands in response to this. And that's the difference, I think, between 5 years ago and now. So maybe it isn't as much of a surprise as it might have been. But like I said, huge risk, because making a change is one thing. If you've got a very solid argument to do so, maybe you've got a data-led argument to do so. Maybe you're looking at what's happened in the Premier League with newly promoted teams and philosophies and, a style of football that needs you to have very good players on the ball. And thinking about how many times Leeds have, dominated possession in games, it's going to be very, very different in the Premier League against a lot of teams. Maybe you can build an argument around that, and that's solid enough. But the appointment has to be so spot on, because if you are an Iraola, right, and you haven't won in 10 games at Elland Road in the Premier League, I think it's a different case to Bournemouth. I think you get more time at Bournemouth. I'm not trying to cast all Southerners and people who live in idyllic coastal towns as gentler people than these harsh northern brutes. But I think the expectation level and the emotion, as Farke keeps pointing out, at Elland Road is wild. So, God forbid they make a change, a manager comes in and he initially struggles, because I just don't know that the patience would be there, particularly after Leeds have just won promotion with what might be 100 points.
You're talking about Elland Road there then. Let's talk about the facilities rather than the people. This week there were plans or conceptual designs, drawings released by the club, which show what Elland Road could look like with a 53 potentially rising to 56,500 capacity. It is the 49ers flagship project, this enhancement of Elland Road and the matchday experience, and for basically bringing Leeds into the 21st century in terms of English football stadia. What did you make of those drawings then? Because I mean, I've seen a lot of people say don't like a two-tiered Kop, but love everything else about it. Seen a few people go, well, that's similar to Liverpool's new development, the Anfield Road stand. I think I saw a few people say nice touch by putting Leeds 6, Stoke 0 on the scoreboard in the video. What else did you have to say on that?
Was that a cup game against Stoke? Because you'd like to think that when Leeds are in the new stadium, that's the only circumstance in which they play Stoke in order to win 6-0 again. People have been asking for this for a long time, because these things don't quite feel real until you see an artist impression. That said, when I was covering Works Up Town for the Works Up Guardian, I saw some fantastic artist impressions of new stadiums that they were going to get that never materialised, and they're still at the old ground now. This is very much a project that's ready to go, though, and a very serious project, and one that has already had pretty significant backing from Leeds City Council. So people kind of now, I think, start to get excited about the prospect of having a stadium that's worthy of the demand for tickets, worthy of the size of the fan base. But the difficulty is that, look at Monday night, right, against Bristol City. The Cup was unbelievable from start to finish. They conducted the madness. They orchestrated the atmosphere, I felt. Sometimes it feels like it's the South Stand. Sometimes it feels like the cheese wedge is really driving things. It felt to me on Monday like the Cup was just absolutely running the show when it came to the atmosphere, and the noise was unbelievable. And of course, then Leeds go and score lots of goals at that end. And I was thinking earlier about how the Sheffield United game, there was a great goal in front of the Cup. Great atmosphere. When there's it feels like when there's a moment and when there's urgency in the stadium, it feels like the big moments tend to happen at that end of the stadium for some reason. Sunderland, the 2 late goals were at that end. I think back to the Jaffe goal that was at that end. I'm sure there's been other big moments. But you don't want to mess with what you've got at that end of the stadium. Yes, you want to get more people in, but you don't want to ruin the atmosphere. And that's something that Parag Marathi had made clear right from the very first mentions of developing and enlarging Elland Road. So yeah, it's definitely the atmosphere has got to be a massive consideration. But at the same time, Leeds United have too many people wanting to get tickets who cannot get tickets, and so they need to make that happen. I thought the plan, or not the plans, the pictures look great. Looks modern, looks big. Show me the press box. Show me a press box that has been designed with human beings, physical human beings in mind. Because at almost every other stadium you ever go to, the press box is generally a shambles where the desk is too far from the chair is too small for the desk, the desk is too narrow, too short, your laptop falls off. It's quite incredible how they managed to get it wrong almost everywhere. And that is probably everyone's main concern right now.
Yes, some people's concern. I'd say it's certainly one half of the Inside Elland Road podcast's main concern about those drawings. Have you managed to put any of them up on the fridge, the Smith household?
I've actually knocked up some of my own to go on the fridge. I would challenge you to do the same.
So there's a bit of disparity as well, though, in terms of the eventual capacity of this enhanced Elland Road. Obviously, the designs are with 56,500 in mind, if that's possible, but it's expected that the final capacity of this developed Elland Road, the developed north and west stands, will bring the capacity to 53,000. Do you have any more light to shed on that?
Well, it's simply a fact that the pre-application that's going before the panel next week, I think it is it May 8th, that is for an application for a 56,500 capacity stadium. That will give Leeds headroom and wiggle room, should it become possible, to go up to that capacity. But the current design, the working progress design, is 53,000 capacity. That's what it's at. And also, we now know that there will be some changes to the South Stand as well. We haven't got the meat on the bones for that yet, but I wonder if it's the boxes at the back of the South Stand being removed in order to put more seats in order to help them get the capacity they need. Because it's hard to see what else you could do with the South Stand, given that it's on the road, essentially, and you can't exactly go back much further. So, yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see this all start to take shape. I think they're pretty confident that they'll get through planning. It was described by the leader of the opposition at Leeds City Council's executive board meeting as shovel ready. I think one of the most shovel ready stadium projects in the country, I think, was how it was put. And everyone feels like it's taken quite a big step forward, with the council agreeing to negotiate the sale of land to Leeds and enter a memorandum of understanding with the Lowy family group about the land around Elland Road for development. And it could all look very, very shiny and very new.
Certainly could. And speaking of things that are going to be shiny and new, do you reckon that the buses that Leeds will be on top of on their open top parade around the city centre will be brand spanking new, or just some old, I don't know, what would you call them? Old bangers that they've managed to dig out from the old bus depot. What do we expect?
I'd love it if they had a retro bus, the bus that Leeds toured the city in when Gordon Strachan had a trophy above his head. That would be absolutely amazing. No, I would imagine they'll be quite quite modern because the risk of the thought of it breaking down in that mile loop is not worth thinking about, is it? It'll be a great day for the city, won't it? On Monday, bank holiday. Hopefully the sun will shine as it has done this week, and Leeds will go on this 1 mile loop for about an hour and 90 minutes. No focal point because of the numbers of people that are expected in the city. So they're telling people that just get where you can, spread out along the route, and the players and the manager will have a mic, and they will address the fans as they go around, so that everyone will get. I mean, they said everyone will get the same experience. Everyone will get a unique experience, I think, won't they? Because some will probably get largely Ramazani doing and saying things, and some might get Daniel Farke. But I think everyone will get a chance to see and hear from their promotion heroes, and just a chance for the whole city to celebrate. And I think everyone involved really hopes that it's a title-winning team on that bus. They are obviously going to do the parade regardless, and that was always the plan because of the costs and the logistics involved in planning something like this, and the fact that the title race is going to go to the last. You can't exactly win a title on Saturday and then declare to the City Council and to West Yorkshire Police, right then, Monday, let's have a parade, because of the road closures and like I said, the logistics, the operations of it all. So they were going to do it anyway. But I think everyone really hopes that they're parading as the first place team in the championship rather than the second place team.
If there was one member of the Leeds squad who would potentially let slip or drop the championship title off the top of the open top bus, and it then falls in front of the bus and it gets trodden on, or it gets run over, who do you think it would be?
Who do we have
Be
down
kind.
as irresponsible or potentially mashed enough to drop the trophy off the side of
That's
the
what I'm
bus?
kind of getting at. It's mashed enough, rather than who's irresponsible or who might be a little bit clumsy. I think it's more of a reflection of who, yeah,
Yeah,
who'd be enjoying the festivities so much that they'd just forget that they'd balanced this, this historic trophy on the side of precariously balanced on the side of the bus.
yeah. I mean, again, I'm looking at. I don't know if Ramazan is the kind of character to go like full Matthias Click once everything's done and dusted and just be hammered for days on end. So I don't know if of that aspect of it, but I could see him. I could see him being in such high spirits that he might inadvertently drop a trophy off the side of the bus. But how premature is this? They have to go and win it first. There's still a win to be had against a
They
team that do not lose many games against top sides.
they do, but it's against a virtually relegated Plymouth. And the way that they played on Monday night, do you think that's a team who aren't going to be on it on Saturday
So
lunchtime?
it's away from home, right? It's an early kickoff. It's against a Plymouth who, yes, they're all but relegated, but they're gonna have to give it a go, in front of their fans. And also, even if they know they're going down, right? Even if they know it's unlikely or whatever, or almost impossible rather, they're going to want to spoil Leeds' party. And I still think I think they'll be out to go. They'll want to go out on the shields, Plymouth, on Saturday. I don't see them not putting up a fight or a resistance. That said, Bristol City came to Elland Road on Monday night as a team with playoff aspirations and got absolutely trounced, just annihilated from start to finish. And as much as they might have been poor, it was a lot to do with Leeds United just being superb. Leeds United playing with no real jeopardy is a scary prospect for
Yeah,
anyone in the championship.
And again, there's the possibility that if Plymouth will set up with every intention of going out on their shields. They've actually made a real good fist of trying to stay in the division under Miran Muslic. I just think that there's a quality deficit. Leeds playing without pressure. I mean, I say playing without pressure. Yes, the title's still on the line, but I mean, the club have been very transparent. Daniel Farke has been very transparent. The objective was promotion, and they've achieved it. The title will be a nice little cherry on the top, but yeah, the most important thing is actually going up. So um, it's an added incentive. It's a bonus, but I feel like if you look at the freedom with which Leeds played, the fluidity, the lack of jeopardy. You mentioned it about a couple of players on Monday night. They just seem to be not unburdened because they've been excellent this season, but they seem to play. It almost felt as though they went up a gear in terms of game management and game control. There were countless occasions where there were 20, 30 pass sequences where Bristol City just weren't getting any time on the ball. I think we could see similar at Plymouth on the final day. I think the conditions are exactly set up for it. And if Leeds get an early goal, if you're a Plymouth player, you're thinking, well, yeah, I want to, go out, as you said, on my shield, but ultimately, it's very much out of their hands.
Yeah, I mean, you had Brendan Aronson sending a player to the weights room and then rouletting past another, which was just incredible. You had Jayden Bogle seeing passes that were coming down his flank almost before the intended recipient and just bursting onto the ball and running onto the ball and taking it away from them. Gruev was winning the ball back. Tanaka was all over it. Like Leeds were just so on the front foot, and if they play like that, I don't think anyone in the Championship can really live with them, particularly when they're in such clinical form as well. It just like the Stoke game, the finishing has just been really, really good, and the goals have been really, really good. And that third goal, I mean, the second one, Piru's pass for Gnonto and Gnonto's finish, absolutely superb. What an unbelievable through ball from Piru. The vision and execution was fantastic. Great finish. But the third goal for me was just outstanding. The play, the link up, and then the cross from Firpo, which he's done time and time again. He slides the ball brilliantly between the defence and the goalkeeper in a way that means a defender is either going to leave it or score an own goal, and the keeper can't get to it, and it finds someone at the back post, and that someone was Ramazani, who it was lovely to see get 2 goals to finish with a flourish. It was almost a picture book, storybook, fairy tale type thing for him. Just a shame we didn't get to see Harry Gray, but I understand why Farke made the substitutions he did. And in saying that, I will now revise my answer. I can see Harry Gray dropping the trophy off the side of the bus because we now have had a bit more glimpse into the shy and retiring introvert that he appears to be.
Yes, we have had a glimpse into the personality of young Harry Gray, who I was at Sutton United last night for the National League Cup final where Leeds 21s were crowned the inaugural winners. And Harry really looks up for it, is what I will say. Playing against central defenders who were 7 and 9 years his senior, they didn't give him an easy ride, and yet he looked the better of the 3 players. He was able to hold them off. He was able to roll them. There was one instance where he was kind of being held, but on the blind side of the referee, I could see from my position that he was just as much holding the the defender's shirt behind him, so it looked as though he was the one being fouled. There was a lot of that, and yeah, I think that Leeds could have a player on their hands without getting too over the top, considering we've seen him in first team football for all of 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. I suppose we don't even know if he'll be in the squad this Saturday, because if Joe Rothwell is back, if Dan James is back, if Isaac Schmidt returns, then potentially they will all take Gray's spot. But I think we'd all love to see him in the group at Plymouth. purely for the entertainment factor alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And the prospect of him scoring a goal, which I think would just about bring the roof down on any stadium. He was a joy to watch in the celebrations, not least because he is almost like he's nodding towards the fact that he shouldn't be quite such a main character because he's played like 3 minutes of senior action. But the way he came out, Sam Chambers comes out when his name's announced. He comes out the tunnel, and it's a very kind of polite, respectful kind of clap towards the fans, and he's jogging because he probably just wants to get out the limelight. Harry Gray bounces out of the tunnel and is asking the crowd for more noise. He's there with a knee slide on the pitch. He's there on the crossbar. He's trying to pull down the shorts of Sam Chambers. He was just an absolute riot. And it was very, very, very funny to watch. I think there is unparalleled comedy potential here for Leeds United with this one. And obviously, as you saw in the 21s, very good footballer as well, who's got a serious amount of potential.
Yeah, he's. I think you could describe him as Leeds United's little scamp at the moment, couldn't you? But definitely has the potential to be a real problem for defences and maybe communications teams in future, trying to keep a lid on what he has to say, given that he clearly does. He gets it, you know what I mean. I did think last night actually he dealt with sort of being the main man quite well. After the game and the celebrations, all you could hear around the stadium was, kids asking for his shirt and stuff, and everyone going, Harry, Harry, everybody wanting a piece of him. Well, whereas the rest of his teammates were sort of, hanging back a little bit. He seemed a little bit reluctant to sort of engage with that, which I think shows real good humility and professionalism. He's kind of aware of the regard in which he's held by the fans because of his surname. But also, he proved on the night that he's got a bit about him as well. So, there were also some changes at Leeds this week in terms of the makeup at executive level. There were a few people who were given new titles, a few people who were given promotions. I suppose what do you? I mean, we'll get on to who they are, but what do you also make of this this raft of changes? From the 49ers perspective, particularly against the backdrop of what we've said about Farke in this episode.
I take it all as a bit of a vote of confidence in what they've got, in the talent that they've got right now. Peter McCormick has obviously been brought in to be back involved again with the club, but all these other changes were promotions or new titles, weren't they? Or beefed up remits, whatever you want to call it. But people who are already in the building, somebody on social media say, with all the greatest respect, and it was a very respectful message, that they're a bit concerned that Leeds have just won promotion, but they're putting their stock in people who haven't been there and done it in the Premier League. But I mean, look at Adam Underwood. He's been there for 10 years. He's worked his way up, kind of running the academy, football operations, then expanding his remit to take in a bit of a lead on transfers as well and the business of the first team. He's become sporting director, which is a big title because we associate it with the men who make serious transfer business happen and the men who put together squads. And obviously, previously Leeds had a football director who was a very divisive character and a bit of a lightning rod. And I certainly wouldn't ever expect Adam Underwood to be that. He's not that kind of character at all, has never kind of sought that kind of limelight or profile at Elland Road, always kept himself to himself. Very pleasant to chat to, but does not seek out kind of media or doesn't want to tell you that a player that he's just seen that's 16 or whatever, makes him think of an all-time Premier League legend. You won't get loose lip talk like that from him. And the rest, some of it, it's the kind of granular detail that fans probably don't really need to hear, but it's good for them to know who everybody is. I mean, Faye Greer was financial officer, is now chief financial officer. So I guess what it also suggests is some of these people might be getting a bit more help. They might be getting, their departments might be getting resourced a little more generously, because Leeds are a Premier League club and they need to act accordingly in terms of staffing levels. And the kind of feet on the ground was one of the things that the 49ers wanted to do, and wanted to do in excess of what they were able to do, I guess, in the initial year, or initial 2 years after relegation. And now that they're in the Premier League, they will be able to adequately staff these departments.
Yeah, you also spoke to Junior Firpo. Was it last week, just before the Bristol City
Friday.
game? Yeah, last Friday. Part 2 of your interview with him is this week's Inside Ellen Road newsletter. Could you give us a little taste of what's in there?
Yeah, I wanted to ask him about who he'd had messages from, that kind of thing, and he didn't drop names. I was a little bit disappointed. I wanted him to drop massive names, but he didn't drop names. But he did reveal that there's a WhatsApp group with Spanish-speaking ex-Leeds United players in it. He did drop one name in that, which will be an interesting one when fans read it. I wanted to ask him about life as a promotion winner. What was it like the first few days after winning promotion? And got a couple of nice anecdotes from him on what he'd experienced since. Wanted to ask him about playing as a 9, how that's come about his goals and assists, about the difficult moments this season and what the key to bouncing back was, because Leeds, by and large, bounced back incredibly from any kind of disappointment this season. And yeah, a little bit about the future as well. Firpo is one of the best talkers in the squad, and obviously one of the most interesting people to interview because his story is a bit different. You know, he's come from Barcelona. He's started up an international career at the age of, he's 28 now, but he's kind of making his first steps and making history on the international scene, and also he's out of contract. So yeah, interesting one to chat to, and hopefully people will enjoy the interview.
Yeah, and by the time this goes out, I believe the newsletter will already have been sent, won't it?
Yeah.
So if you want more stuff like that, then do sign up to the Inside Ellen Road newsletter, and I'm sure Graham will furnish you with the insights from Inside Ellen Road throughout the summer. We're coming up to the end of this week's episode, but before we do, one final time this season, Graham, I'd like to get your starting 11 and score prediction for this weekend.
Okay. Carl Darlow, Jayden Bogle, Junior Firpo, Joe Rodon, Ethan Ampadu, Ao Tanaka, Ilya Gruev, Willie Gnonto, Manuel Solomon, Brendan Aronson, Joel Peru.
Yep, I can see it being an unchanged side as well. Score prediction, what are you going with?
What am I saying? I'm saying Plymouth Argyle 0, Leeds United 3. I don't think Dan James plays because he said there was a very slim chance he was back for it. But what is the need?
No,
you know,
there's
no point. Solomon's in great form. Gnonto got his goal, so should be in great form. Ramazani got 2 goals. He should be raring to come off the bench again. You don't need to risk Dan James. You know, he wants to get back because obviously he's got internationals to think about as well this summer. But I just don't think there's a need to risk him. And who can I see scoring goals? I'm going to go Rodon from a corner. A big old 50p head puts itself to good use. I'm going to say Peru gets one, and I'm going to say Mateo Joseph comes off the bench and gets one.
I'm saying Leeds win 4-1.
4-1.
Yeah, 4-1, and they get a penalty, and Ethan Ampadu takes it because he is the only member of the squad, I believe, this season, or at least the only regular member of the squad this season, regularly featuring, who is yet to score or assist. So that would cap off the season quite nicely if the skipper was putting one in to put the clincher on the title. Go on.
He's so boringly professional and focused, though, that I can imagine him just not even thinking about it and insisting that Peru takes it. Like, he is. It's so difficult to get Ampadu to come out of that mode. Even when they'd hammered Stoke 6-0, it was all about, let's see what happens. It's not done yet. We need to keep going. Even after they beat Bristol City and they partied and doused their manager in champagne, he was still talking about that's one target achieved. Let's go and do the next one. I don't think he'll come out of that mode until the final whistle. And then maybe he'll absolutely cut loose and just be a wild man for the rest of the summer.
I've been informed that after speaking with journalists at a recent sort of like press huddle, Ampadu was quite pleased with himself at one of his answers. So I think there's maybe a little bit more than just the professionalism. I think there's certainly a bit of intent when it comes to maybe being a little bit more dull in some of his answers than he could be. So I think he knows exactly what he's doing. But again, that then further speaks to the professionalism, doesn't it? Graham and I will be down in Plymouth this weekend. We're not getting on the Raz, despite what people may have suggested. But if you would like to buy us a drink, we will not decline. Graham, could you get our order in nice and early? What are you drinking and what am I drinking?
Guinness for me, probably daiquiri for you. Different drinks for different needs.
Alcopops only, thank you. Yeah, 2 Guinnesses will go very nicely. But yeah, we'll be down there. Please do come and say hello if you're a listener or a viewer of the podcast, because yeah, that's why we do it. We do it for you guys, and staring at ourselves on a screen for 45, 47 minutes to an hour is not how we like to spend our time. But yeah, we do very much enjoy this, and it's been a great season. Really thoroughly enjoyed doing these weekly updates with Graham, but also speaking to you guys. We've loved engaging in the comments, and yeah, a massive thank you to everybody who's tuned in, whether it's one episode or all, I don't know, however many there are. Yeah, we're really grateful, and I'm sure that Graham will add to that with a particularly lengthy and effusive statement of his own.
Yeah, thanks very much.
There we go, as predictable as ever. I've been Joe Donoghue, and this has been the Inside Elland Road podcast with YEP Chief Football Writer Graham Smith. Yeah, we'll see you after the Plymouth game. Bye for now.